Hey everybody, welcome back to Lumber Capital Log Yard. I have a bit of a unique opportunity today. We are having torrential downpours and I was only able to work till 1 or 1:30 in the woods. So I told Emerald I would do a video, and I wanted to talk about, this is something I've wanted to touch base on with our viewing audience for quite a while. And we just lost power, so our lighting there it's back on. Having some pretty serious storms. Anyhow, I wanted to talk about Carbide Blades, and I'm going to back up and tell you just a little something about the business history. It's been challenging as a father and as a business owner to get the log yard running on its own. It's only been a little over a year since the girls have been done with school, and they, of course, as you've seen through the videos, have done an exceptional job. But it is very hard for me to walk away. And many times, with not much of an excuse, it's easy for me to go to the log yard to work because there's always plenty to do there. And it just always amazes me how much needs done. What would happen is I would end up missing working in the woods. So for a very long time, I was really only a part-time logger. And prior to the girls being at the log yard, I would log, and then on a bad day I would come to the log yard and do firewood and or run the lumber mill. I'm dropping my tools. So we did a video a month or two ago on Carbide Blades, and I didn't really have time to sit down and put the math to it, whether it is really economically feasible to run such an expensive high quality blade or not. I've had the opportunity now to actually put some numbers to it, and I was shocked to find out that even with the expense of the carbide blade, it is by far more economical to run the more expensive blade. So I wanted to just briefly go through the numbers. I know this video isn't necessarily for everyone. If you are running a small homeowner's mill, I don't recommend you go to an expensive blade. And the main reason I don't recommend that is because you really, to make it economical, you really need to have a debarker. And this is where the carbide blades can be a bit of an issue. They will remain sharp for up to 18 operating hours. That's not your mill being shut off at lunchtime like an 8-hour day. That's engine operating hours. They can last up to 17 or 18 hours. But if you hit a stone, you're going to break a tooth. And anybody that has bent a tooth knows what your lumber does. Right away it starts putting a little mark on it. Then you hit another tooth, and now you have a problem. Now you're looking at a blade change. So you can't cut 1 or 2 logs or 1 or 2 hours of milling. You need to go, a full day or 2 days even of operating with that blade to make it economical as far as the financial end. Now I will say that I talked to Wood-Mizer a couple times, and after speaking with them extensively about this new blade system, is their recommendation that the blade runs to failure, which we end up doing with our blades anyhow. As we resharpen them, eventually the blade is so fatigued it just snaps. And there's not really anything you can do about it. We monitor our PSI on the blade, how much tension there is, and of course as the blade heats up it expands, and the PSI goes back and forth, up and down. Certainly running a cold blade, it can be a lot tighter, until it warms up. But eventually the blade will crack in the gullet, and then the blade life is over. So it's recommended by Wood-Mizer that to optimize your use, you just run till failure. Now I will say that the blades can be sharpened. Of course it requires a diamond head tool. That is not something I'm familiar with. Grandpa has the whole setup, and he's always been a master technician with anything with an edge. When Grandpa lived in Florida, anytime he was up to visit, we would have him sharpen every knife, every tool we could think of, because he's always been so good at it. So this was a natural for him to jump in on this. Currently, we are not sharpening carbide blades. So let's take a look at the numbers, and I'll show you just by using straight math what makes sense and what doesn't. Okay, I'm over here to my fancy dry erase board and been making notes. I was actually in the dozer today, not in the skidder, so the notes are a little hard to read. When I did the math, the carbide blades come in a box of 5, and if you were just divide the cost of the box by 5, the carbide blade is approximately $80. So you have 80 there. And the blades, the 747s that we run, are approximately $26. So, major difference between the carbide blade and the standard 747 that we're running for hemlock. And the 747 also allows you to cut some hardwood too. You have to slow down a little bit, but it works pretty good. If you can sharpen the blade 4 times, and it's $8 to sharpen the blade, that would be another $32. And then you have to consider a very primary expense. If you have 2 people operating your mill and you stop to change a blade because the blade is worn out, it takes about 5 to 10 minutes to change a blade. Now, the girls are pretty quick, so let's just call it 7.5 minutes. But that's times 2. So that's 15 minutes because you have 2 people working. Now, if you're changing it 4 times over the life of a blade, now you have 1 hour's worth of labor for 2 people. Now, I'm just using wholesale numbers. I don't know what your payment structure is, or if it's just your time on it or what. But let's just say that 1 hour cost, let's say it costs $30. So now what do we have here? We've got 8 and 8. So you have $88 in cost for operating the 747 that we generally run. So you have an $8 difference. It saves you $8 to run the carbide blade. The carbide blade puts you in a plus of $8 immediately. But this is where the magic really happens. You have spent 1 hour changing blades. So now you have to know how many board feet do you generally do in an hour. Let's just say it's 300. Now you have 300 more board feet. Say you get $1 a board foot, so there's $300 more worth of material that you milled over the time of changing the 747s compared to the carbide blade. So mathematically, this blade, the carbide blade, is by far superior to the standard metal blades. Now, the caveat though and thinking it through. And we've only experimented with carbide blades, and I don't have a thorough feel for it yet. But in thinking it through, what you need to understand is you really have to have clean logs. And if you don't have clean logs, which takes time, especially like if you power wash them, I know some people do that. We don't have time to fool around like that. You definitely have to have a debarker. So if your mill doesn't have a debarker, it's my opinion, maybe Wood-Mizer or other companies would tell you differently, but I wouldn't recommend running that blade. As soon as you hit a stone, you're going to start breaking teeth. They're extremely hard as far as that goes. So you need to have the right mill setup. And really the perfect situation would be if you're a bigger mill and you have a full-blown debarker where you're actually removing all the bark, not just the kerf debarker that comes on the Wood-Mizers, but you actually remove the bark from the log. And I don't know, like how many videos you've seen recently, but my skids are extremely long. The longer the skid, the more material in the bark, and the more stones and the more dirt and the grit that gets, really crammed in there. And again, the standard debarker that is provided on the Wood-Mizer mills does a good job, but you would really want to, take some time and consider if you break teeth or something like that, then you're going to want to avoid it. I'm going to do a follow-up video after we run more of the carbide blades. Certainly like our LT15, that's not something we're ever going to be able to jump to. And right now, I don't really have a feel for it, but I'm excited as I review these numbers to think that, if we're able to gain what would be the equivalent to us of 2 hours more of milling a week under the same financial protocols, that's substantial. And it is really peculiar when you step back and you actually start looking at how much time you're not moving in the direction of production during your day. Now I know some mills have the blades right there and they have a system and they're very rapid. So when I give you a number like the average time, it really is definitely an average, and you can cut down on those times by being very dynamic and having your blades, a place to hang the old blade and the new blade sitting right next to the mill where it can go right on the head. And 2 people can probably swap them out if they're really quick in 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes. But the way that life goes, you know how it is when you break your rhythm. Now it's time for a cup of coffee. There's many other variables. You lose your train of thought on what's going on, and you have a broken rhythm. It happens to me in the woods when I'm working. It's very frustrating. When you break your rhythm, it's really hard to get back into the dynamics of what you're trying to do in the day. So Em always tells me I'm long-winded. I need to take more breaks. I thought this was sort of exciting because I like saving money and I like making things make sense. So hopefully it was beneficial, and have a good week. And I guess it's Wednesday, so we're getting close to the weekend. Thank you.